Yo, okay, so I just got done with my match with for the Disco Inferno tournament, and it went pretty well. Just kind of showing off the deck that I built for it. This is sort of like a Kaiju Albaz OTK type deck, but I kind of built it a little bit mid-range just in case we go first or if the game goes long. So first off, we have Albion, the Shrouded Dragon. We're running two of him because we want to see him but not draw into more than one of him. He has like a Foolish Burial effect where he can send an Albaz card from deck to grave. A lot of times we want to send an Albaz to grave so that we can set up with the Branded in White to fusion summon with it. Or what we can do is, if he's already in the grave, we can send Screams of the Branded, which will reset it in the end phase, so he can kind of like tutor out a trap card if he's in the graveyard. And sometimes he does end up in the graveyard because of Branded in High Spirits, which is a pretty dope card in this format. For this deck, we discard him for Branded, search a card, and then use him to tutor out the next card we need. Next we have three Albaz. Obviously this is what the deck is kind of built around. He's like super poly on legs, so we can just fuse away our opponent's board and then go kill them. And ideally we're fusing away using one of our Kaijus. So if they have kind of like a unoptimal target for us, we want to be replacing it with a Kaiju because it sets up the OTK. Spriggan's Kit is crazy good in this deck. She will cycle a card in hand for an Albaz spell trap. So usually we are searching either Branded in White or Branded Lost, this is sort of like the engine of the deck. We want to like establish Branded Lost and then do some fusion summonings in order to like start searching cards from the deck. The other thing she can do is if we have an Albaz fusion monster in the graveyard, she can special summon herself, which is great because we're actually running one rank 4 monster in Time Thief Redoer. So sometimes if we get kind of a nice hand, we get to make a Redoer, which is pretty great. He's like a win condition and advantage engine on his own. Then we have two Mercurier. This is like hand trap. There's not a lot of hand traps in this format because it's like a pretty budget format. Most of them are too expensive, but we get to run this one. It's searchable, so we have two of them. We don't want to run three of them because Branded in High Spirits has to send a monster from the hand to graveyard that is of a certain type, as similar to our fusion monsters. But Mercurier is a wing beast, so we don't have any wing beast fusions, so we don't really want to see a bunch of them in hand. But we don't want to run just one of them because it actually can search an Albaz monster when it is banished, so we can run a Gold Sark in order to kind of turn it into a search spell, which is pretty cool. So Branded in White is a Miracle Fusion for the archetype, but you have to use a dragon, and you have to use Albaz in order to get the From the Grave effect, which is pretty good. We can push for lethal here. We can set up a play if our opponent didn't give us what we need. We can play the long game with it. It's pretty good. We only need one because you can cycle it from the graveyard with Kit, so it's great. Branded Loss, great value engine if we can get established. I'm not like prioritizing it in this build. I'm mostly trying to OTK going second, but it can come up. Screams of the Branded is actually a pretty cool decision. I had a hard time deciding which of the Branded spell traps to actually play. There's a handful of them and they all do like specific niche things, but I went with this one and just the one of it because there's a lot of removal in the format. So sometimes you want to land on one of your big guys, usually Mirror Jade. If we can get this set, if they out the Mirror Jade, they have to out it again, which is pretty cool. And what's actually kind of neat is that Mirror Jade's effect is not a hard once per turn, it's a soft once per turn. So if you do reborn him, you get to activate his effect again, which is pretty cool. Same thing with a couple of other monsters, I think. Then we have the Kaiju lineup. So it's 3 Jizukiru, 1 Thunder King, 1 Raiden, and 3 Interrupted Kaiju Slumbers. And we're running this ratio specifically because like normally you would run like a 2-2-2 or like 3 of one, 2 of another one, or something like that, instead of this 3-1-1 ratio. It's because one thing, the light ones are much better for us than the dark ones because we can fuse into Albion and then use Albion to fuse into an additional fusion monster. We can use Raiden to fuse into Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, which is good in its own right, which it could be its own consideration. But mainly, my ratios are to prioritize having a Jizukiryu. Jizukiryu is, for one, he's the highest level out of all of them, so he makes the biggest Titaniclad. But for another, he's a machine, so we can actually discard him off of Branded in High Spirits, sending Sprind, who is a machine, in order to get the play started. Sprind will search Kit or Albaz in the end phase, but oftentimes we just kind of want him to be a fusion in the graveyard for like a Branded in White. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So he could basically, even though it's like if we go first, like our opponent makes us go first and we hit the Kaijus, or if they don't summon any monsters, we can still use him with our engine. So it's pretty cool. Monster Reborn, because most of these monsters have it's like Albaz and Spring Against Kit, as well as Keeper Dragon Magic. I'll have effects that trigger on normal and special summon, so having that can re-trigger their effects, which is pretty cool. They're once per turn, but like say we dump them with Albion or something like that, we can Monster Reborn Albus and then go for it. Gold Sark is purely for Mercurier, just to search out like a Kit or an Albaz if we need it. Foolish Burial. This was better when I was running some Despy cards in it, but I found the Despy cards to be a little bit too bricky, a little bit too high rolly. But we can use this to dump Albion to search our trap, or we can use this to dump an Albaz in order to set up Monster Reborn, or Branded in White, or like anything else. Just get them out and go for plays. We're running Hey Trunade because since there's no hand traps in the format, there's a lot of just traps, full stop. So people going first are going to be running lots of spaces for traps, like board wipes and like Torrential Tribute, Mirror Force is rampant, and a bunch of other stuff like that. Like Compulse, so a bunch of like interruption. So if I have a good hand that I think will win the game, I can activate Hey Trunade and try to win on the spot. Seeing like Interrupted Kaiju Slumber plus Hey Trunade, pretty dope. Branded in High Spirits, like I said, this is like our main searcher engine card. We're specifically running certain cards because we can discard them. Keeper Dragon Magic is a dragon, which can discard most stuff. It's pretty dope because we can discard one of our branded dragons, and this can search Screams of Branded in the end phase if we like play around keeping me in the graveyard. If we banish from the graveyard, just search us in a half trigger. But if we keep in the graveyard, we can set Screams of the Branded, or we can maybe add a Branded in the White or Branded Lost to hand in the end phase and try to go for next turn, set up the engine. Pretty cool. We can also search up Branded in High Spirits for follow-up, but what's great is this card also, if besides the turn you activate its first effect, if a fusion monster is sent to the graveyard, it adds stuff back to the hand, which is really great because we really do discard a lot. One of the big problems with like the going first build of this deck was that you just ended on not much by discarding your entire hand. Like Lubellion discards a card, you have to discard a card for Albaz, Keeper of Dragon Magic discards a card to search your fusion cards, so like you end up on like Mirror Jade and no cards in hand, and if they out that, it's like, oh, you're really kind of screwed. I mean, this deck has a really great like advantage engine, so like as the game goes on, I think you start outpacing your opponent, but I'm deciding to play it a little bit differently to not run into that issue. Keeper Dragon Magic, you might say like, oh, there's no poly in your deck, but that's okay. He searches fusion spells, and fusion deployment is a fusion spell. Most all of our fusion monsters have Albaz as a fusion requirement, so this is just 3 more copies of Albaz pretty much, and special summons. The only thing about it is that it fusion locks us, so that's why I'm not running like link monsters or a bunch of generic extra stuff besides Time Thief Redoer, and I'll kind of talk about that a little bit more. I'm playing 1 Lost Wind. I suppose I could replace this with something, but this card's actually kind of nice because, like I said, most of the combos requires us to discard stuff. It's actually not a bad card to discard because if it's in our graveyard and then it's our opponent's turn, they special summon, we get to reset this. So we kind of eventually regain that lost advantage. If we turn that discard into like a -0 instead of a -1 for cost. Then we're playing some just kind of Ghost Second staples here. We're playing Mind Control, Pankratops, and Red Reboot. Red Reboot to kind of negate traps, so if the opponent acts like Torrential Tribute on us when we summon, we can Red Reboot them, stop them. It's basically Hey Trunade. Pretty dope. Pankratops just pretty good board breaker going second. He can help us OTK if we need a little bit more. Like, let's say we didn't open Inverted Kaiju Slumber, so we didn't special summon our own Kaiju to our side of the field, but we still like put a Kaiju on theirs. We can pick our tops just for like 2600 more damage, and then potentially represent a pop later on. He also pops any card that opponent controls, so he can also kind of be like an MST if we need him to be. Minecon just helps clean things up. If we have opponents with problematic cards, he's kind of another Kaiju, but we can't fusion with it. So pretty cool. So that's like the main deck. In the extra, we got Mirror Jade. Mirror Jade sends one of our fusion monsters to the graveyard once every 2 turns. And then he's a 3000 beat stick, and then also when he's destroyed in the end phase, destroy all your opponent's monsters. So he's a board wipe whenever he gets outed, which is pretty cool. He's pretty much our boss monster. We want to end on him. What's great is that most of the Albaz fusion monsters during the end phase when they're sent to the graveyard, they search something. So for example, Brigand, the Glory Dragon, when he's sent to the graveyard in the end phase, he can search a Tri-Brigade monster, and Mercurier just happens to be a Tri-Brigade monster, so we can search Mercurier or Albaz to hand, or special summon Albaz, which is kind of cute. Sometimes we don't clean up the board fully, and we have a card in hand to discard. We can use that effect to, in the end phase, summon Albaz and fusion away their last remaining monster, maybe making another Mirror Jade or whatever else is fitting for the situation. Lubellion is how you turn any 2 darks in hand with a Branded in white into a Mirror Jade, but like I said, that line requires a lot of discards, so it happens sometimes. But what is nice is that his fusion cost is shuffles monsters back, so as far as the long game goes, you retain a lot more of your resources, but it kind of nombos a little bit because it takes your Albaz out of rotation. He's no longer in your graveyard or in your banish pile or whatever, but it's okay. We have like fusion deployment and draws and stuff like that. We can hopefully get to him. Sprind, you're probably not making him very much. There are situations in which you could make him and he could do stuff. He pops a card on the field. It's kind of cute, but on average, there's like better cards to make. We're running 2 Glory Dragon, mainly because sending him to search Mercurier is pretty cool, and sometimes we can make him diffuse, and his effect is actually not that bad. For one thing, he can't be destroyed by battle, and the other thing is he makes all your other monsters untargetable. So if you're up against something like some targeted removal, we can make him to kind of protect some other stuff, like maybe out of Dracostapelia or Borlode, Fierce Dragon, or Mirror Jade. We want to protect him, we can put this on the field next to him, and then keep our board safe. Pretty cool. Titaniclad, he's just a big beat stick. He gets really, really big. I think he gets like to 39 or something with Jizukuru, but he just gets really big. He helps us push for lethal and stuff like that, or beat over really big guys. Albion the Branded Dragon, he's going to banish. When we summon him, he's going to banish cards from our graveyard in hand to fusion summon additional time, and that usually helps us make stuff like Dracostapelia. We can use him to make Dracostapelia, or we can go into Mirror Jade, or whatever else we need. I think I'm probably going to cut Mud Dragon to the Swamp. I think I was running him when I used to run a Instant Fusion. I might actually replace like a Lost with the Instant Fusion or something like that, but that's really better, like I think, going first than going second, so I don't know. Because he can help us make time to redo. So the like out of archetype fusions, the Dracostapelia, he's a on-field negate. He negates their activated effects on the field. Pretty cool. Gives the deck access to a negate. Starting Venom Fusion Dragon, he's like an OTK tool all on his own. We can make him copy an opponent's effect if they have a strong effect monster in the field. He can also gain their attack, and he can just punch for big damage depending what we're up against. Borlo Furious Dragon, this is make your own DPE at home. Pop a monster we control, pop an opponent's monster. A cool little combo we can do is that if we have Screams of the Branded already set after we make him, we can pop a fusion monster we control, like himself, to pop a card opponent controls, and then we can trigger Screams of the Branded to resummon him. And we actually don't have to summon specifically him Screams of the Branded. If the game has gone long enough where we have other properly summoned fusion monsters at the graveyard, we can actually pop him, summon Mirror Jade with Screams of the Branded, and then activate Mirror Jade's effect to banish something else. So it's pretty cute. Pretty cute little combo. Time Thief Redoer, like I said, we can kind of make them using 2 Spriggan's kits, or like activate a Spriggan's kit effect, normal summon one of the 4s, we can summon this, summon this, summon this, and then we can make Time Thief Redoer. This guy, I'm glad I put him in. He came up a lot in my game. I imagine him being better going first, because like stealing spell cards and then drawing cards to help us get back into the game, or stealing trap cards from our opponent, and then spinning their monsters with that effect. But what's great is he can bounce himself off the field for some other synergies in the side deck. And he's also just like a pretty good little boss on his own. He's hard to hard to deal with. He like calls to be outed, and he takes our opponent's resources. And then hopefully we drain them down enough. He's kind of similar to like a Hatred in that sense, where he gets rid of some of the back row for us by like just being a card that needs to be outed. And it's really cute too, is like we can make him with Albaz, and then we detach his materials, and it sends them into the graveyard, and then we can use Branded White to still use them for a fusion. So he doesn't even like put us that far behind on our game plan. Pretty cute. In the side, for this game, I didn't really side this, but I am running Gores. So the idea is that I'm trying to OTK, and if my opponents kind of catch wind of that or get onto me about that, they might force me to go first. And that's not really great for me. Like, we can end up on a Mirror Jade, but if we like open a lot of Kaijus or whatever, we're not really going to make it. It would be better for us if we wait for our opponent to have monsters in the field so we can, you know, instant or super poly them away. So I would just pass on empty board then, and then we can Gores them, stop their battle phase hopefully, and just like go from there. But you know, it's like, what if that's not enough? Well, what's cool is we can make Time Thief Redoer, and then use his monster effect to banish him from the field whenever we would need to use Gores. So we can still have interaction and draw and hopefully use the trap effect or whatever, or have some presence they have to play around, and then surprise them with the Gores by like jumping off the field using Gores, which is pretty cute. Also, he's a dark, so we can kind of use them to maybe use the Mud Dragon, or use him for Dragostapilia or something like that, or use him on field for a Starting Venom Fusion Dragon. I think we can't use the token for Fusion Dragon, but we can use the Gores himself. I forgot to side in the poly because if we're forced to go first, keep your Dragon Magic and use the poly to kind of go off. Mystical Space Typhoon for the matchups that run a little bit more spell trap cards. For one thing, spell trap cards that would be face up, like Floodgates or something like that. There's not a lot in the format, most of them are banned, but I think there's a couple of them that could be problematic, so running that just for extra spell trap removal in case you're in that matchup. Threatening Roar for like rival OTKs. This is kind of like another copy of Gores, but does something a little bit different. So it's like if people get really used to Gores, they'll probably just switch to this and just run this. More Lost Winds for that little synergy if I'm forced to go first. I think it's pretty good. It's like a monster negate a monster's effect on the field, and I think it's permanent too. It's not just for a turn, so it's pretty strong, and it cuts their attack too. Then Back to the Front is actually pretty awesome. It's like 3 more copies of Streams with Branded, but it's more generic, so we can actually just like Foolish Burial Albaz, set Back to the Front, and then activate Back to the Front to basically super poly on our opponent's turn. And that's somewhere where like Sprint might come up more because they're special summoning on their turn, activating this and activating the effect on their turn. We can make Sprint if it's like a tiny monster that nothing else can make, but we really need to out it. So yeah, that's kind of cute. Alright, so that's enough with the profile, I guess. Let's check out those replays. Let's see, this is should be this should be the ones. It's game 1 and game 2. Okay. Let's swap sides. So my opponent is on this like PK Time Thief deck, I think, with a lot of back row. So we open this hand and they open that hand. They just set 3 and pass. Okay, so like this is obviously not great for me because I have all these Kaijus in my hand. I've had nothing to Kaiju, can't really go into it, but it's okay. We have Branded and High Spirits, so we can kind of still go off. So we're going to discard a Kaiju here, adding Albaz. I think we send it Sprint to the grave. So with Sprint in the graveyard, we can special summon Kit, and Kit can add Branded and White to hand, and we can shuffle back the other Kaiju because we have interrupted Kaiju Slumber, so we're going to bring him out anyway, so it's not really that bad. So we normal summoned Albaz. I decided to swing here because I wasn't sure like what trap cards would be popular in the format. I didn't think you would have Mirror Force, but they held it because it was not a very imposing board, obviously. So I just swing in here because I knew this damage on board was more than Time Thief could, so I just kind of swung in and see what we can do. Plus, I have Branded White in hand, so if he did like have Mirror Force something up for me, I can use that in the follow-up. So I make Redoer here. He uses Book on my Redoer, which is actually pretty crazy because now when Redoer comes back, he will actually be face down. I make Mirror Jade here, but now he reveals the Destruction Tribute, dealing with that. Mirror Jade's effect would trigger, but unfortunately he didn't have any monsters, so it didn't matter. We reset Redoer. The opponent's going to combo off with PKs. Pop my card, add a Ramp Up Magic, and kind of pass here. Take 3,000. So on my turn, I get really lucky and I draw an Albaz, which is perfect. So I sit up here, give them the Kaijus. We're going for the OTK here. This is kind of like the main line we want to do. Probably should have made like Mirror or something like that, but I was specifically thinking like if he had something targeted like a Book of Moon or a Ring of Destruction or something like that, that I was going to use the Glory Dragon to protect from target protection. But he had a Mirror Force, which I wasn't expecting, but that's pretty cool. So this is like the really cool part, is that the resource loop, a lot of these monsters when they're sent to the graveyard in the end phase, they add stuff. So monster sent to the graveyard this turn, so Branded High Spirits come back to my hand. Branded Dragon can search Screams, and then the Brigand brought Albaz to my hand, which is kind of a good reason to summon the Brigand versus over Mirror Jade, because I wouldn't have got that little advantage. I thought I was dead here because of the Raiders Knight, but apparently I think you need monsters on the field in order to make the Rebellion Xyz that like kills you. Use Hatronade to clear the back row, make the way for Mirror Jade. I'm just adding cards to her hand here. Battle phase, swing in. Pass and reset the Branded, because I think oh yeah, I went over a cute little play there. We used Hatronade, we brought Branded back to hand, so when we discarded for Albaz, because it's discarded for an Albaz effect, it actually resets in the end phase, so we actually didn't lose any advantage for that discard, so it's a cute little synergy there with Hatronade. But yep, and that was enough advantage that my opponent decided to scoop. Okay, so then we went to game 2. I sided in more back row removal. This is the hand we start off with. A lot more fusion deployments, and once again, opponent didn't summon any monsters. That's okay. We're gonna Foolish Burial, sending Albion, and where Albion's gonna dump Screams into Branded, so it sets in the end phase. I use Kit. Kit searches, I think, what did we search? We searched Branded and High Spirits, discard Keeper Dragon, Magic, in order to search another Kit. So the play here was basically just special summon the Kit with its first effect so we can make Time Thief. Time Thief's going to eat the Compulse, we're going to chain the effect to bounce, and then he's going to chain Turn to Tribute. So Time Thief ate 2 back rows, and then also we get to set that and search a Branded in white. So now we can make Draco Stapelia next turn. Pretty cool. Opponent's got a chance to kind of go in and swing against us. I'm kind of hoping he doesn't have enough to kill me. Gonna pass turn here. I probably should have just like Hatronaded here, but I didn't think I had lethal, so I wanted to hold it just in case another turn came around. But I just wanted to get rid of their their counter trap card. For some reason I thought they could use it, but they needed an Xyz monster, and they didn't make an Xyz monster, so that's okay. I just popped it. Fusion deployment. Make Albaz. Albaz, we're gonna actually discard Hatronade because I think I got the sauce here. We're gonna make the Borreload Furious Dragon, popping himself and the remaining trap card. Then activate Screams the Brandon to re-summon him, and then go to battle phase. And this is not lethal on board, but it was enough that opponent couldn't come back. So, yeah, that was sort of the plays. Anyway, thanks for watching.